with some sticks there. I'm deep in the Hertfordshire wilderness. May I be the first to say Happy New Decade to everybody. It is now 2020 and we have just lived through, and I think you will all agree, it's been a very interesting decade. We've seen the rise of many things, like the selfie stick. We've also seen the rise of the YouTube outdoor community. Matter of fact, I think those two things are probably connected. Because prior to the selfie stick and the camera phone, you would need a camera and a tripod, which most people didn't own, at least not a decent one, certainly not a tripod. Whereas the selfie stick, once you got that and your camera phone that you own anyway, anybody can record something and stick it on YouTube. We've also seen the rise of the tag film. If somebody thinks of something, I always wonder where these tag films originated. The only one that I know of for sure is obviously the Show Us Your Steak. We all know that came from Hayes Outdoors. Apart from that, I have no idea where these films originate, or where the idea originates, I should say. So I guess somebody has to think one up. So that's what I'm going to attempt to do now. Because for all the films you've seen on YouTube, there's one thing we forgot. We all forgot to say thank you. Thank you to each other. Thank you to everybody for the stuff we've learned off of YouTube. Not just watching people. You can learn things in the comment section as well. So remember, if you're just a watcher and not a participator, you are one of the YouTube outdoor community. So what I want you to do now, and I want everybody to do this, if you're watching this and you're able to post comments, start thinking up your 5 top things that you have learned from YouTube about the great outdoors. And we are going to call this the Thanks for Sharing 5 Challenge. Now you might not think that's a challenge. I can hear a few of you now saying, well, that's hardly a challenge, is it? I mean, God, how easy that can be. You know, name 5 things learned off of YouTube. I could do that in 5 minutes flat. You're right, you could, and you will. Probably do it in less than 5 minutes. You might even make a list. The only trouble is, and I promise you this will happen, 5 minutes later, you'll think of 5 more. You'll then look at your list and think, yeah, maybe get rid of that one, put this one in. Believe me, it will be difficult. Some of you will struggle with the 5, some of you might be tempted to add a few more, but we'll keep the number at around 5. So, what I'm going to do, I'm going to go through my top 5, and then I'm going to tag a whole bunch of people. Now I would like you to bear in mind, like I say, it's 5 things you've learned about the great outdoors from YouTube. It can be anything. It can be a product, probably going to be a product in a lot of cases. It can be a process. It could be a general inspiration. It could be a cooking tip. It could be a hiking tip. It could be a hunting tip. Got to include hunters. I've never been hunting, and hunting isn't really a thing here in England unless you're very rich and you know a farmer with a little piece of land. If you're lucky, you might get to shoot a pheasant. Hunting is much bigger in other parts of the world, but I do think we've absolutely got to include hunting in that, obviously just to annoy the vegans, if nothing else. But like I say, it is not just about survival and camping. It can be about anything. It can be about mountain biking. Now most of the people I'm tagging, well, in fact all the people I'm tagging, will be in the kind of survival camping sort of department. So if anybody wants to take this further into other branches, like I say, hunting, mountain biking, 2 things I'm not into, you may well be. Please pass it forward. Anybody that watches this is an open invitation. Okay, like I say, I'm going to tag a whole bunch of people, but it's an open invitation to anybody that watches this. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to go through my 5, like I say, and tag a whole load of people. Maybe we'll change location once or twice. So let's see how we get on. Now let me give you a few examples of things you will have learnt off of YouTube whilst you're thinking. How many of you, hand on heart, how many of you had ever heard of a Polish lavu 5 years ago? How many of you had heard of a possibles pouch? How many of you knew that if you transport a canoe over land, you have to say it in French? Like I say, the things you learn off of YouTube. How many of you knew that those hats with the light stuck in are a load of rubbish? Well, the hat's okay, the light not so good. I don't know what made me think of that, but anyway, have a little think whilst I change location. The first thing that I'm going to mention is probably the simplest bit of kit I own. But I based my list, like I said just now, you will struggle, you'll make a list, you'll change it, you'll chop and change it around. The way I made mine, and you don't have to do this yourself, I've gone for the things that I actually use the most, the things that I've actually learned that I put into practice, because obviously you learn a lot of things, survival tips, and it's all kind of up there, but obviously unless you're in a survival situation you're not going to use. So the first thing I'm going to mention I'm using right now, and it's slightly out of shot, it is this thing here, the Humble sit pad. Now I guess I would have been aware that these things existed prior to YouTube, probably saw them in camping shops, never considered buying one. But like I say, absolutely brilliant invention. They've got three primary functions. They're for sitting on, they're for kneeling on, they're sometimes called a prayer mat, and also for fanning the fire. But like I say, absolutely brilliant, so useful. In the summer just gone, I went on a 7-day bikepacking trip, and I was trying to go as lightweight as possible. I think I'm not going to take anything I don't 100% need. So I got to the sit pad and thought, well, do I really need that? I could probably survive without it, to be fair, but I thought, no, I'm going to take it anyway. And I used it several times for sitting on a freezing cold metal bench first thing in the morning, or a wet bench, a wet log, a wet bit of grass. And also, one thing it was very useful for, if you want to get kind of half out your tent and have a wee first thing in the morning, obviously you don't want to get all the way out and get dressed and put your shoes on. You're going to need to get half out your tent. You want to kneel down on the ground. I used it, I think, every single morning for that purpose. So like I say, it's a simple one, but it's a good one. The sit pad is the first thing I'm going to mention. And the second thing I'm going to mention that I've learnt off of YouTube, I'm going to give this one to Survival Lily. Now Lily was one of the first people I ever watched on YouTube in the outdoor community. I think her and the Funky Prepper were the two that I watched the most originally, and I learnt a lot of stuff from Lily. And she was the first person on YouTube I ever saw do this. One of them, and one of them. Simple as that. Splitting a piece of wood with a knife. Like I say. That's another thing. Obviously, if you do that, again, you have to speak French. You cannot say splitting a piece of wood, even though I already have. Just then, you have to say batoning. Don't know why. So, there we are. But as well as that, I mean, it's not just about splitting wood. I am going to expand it a little bit and say overall fire creation I've learned from a fair few people. Keeping a fire small, something Wiltshire Man said. I'm sure many of you know Wiltshire Man. He said, there's an old Indian saying, Indian makes a small fire and sits close, white man make big fire and sits far. The theory behind that is the smaller the fire you make, the more heat you will personally get from it, especially if there's just one of you, because you will get closer to it. If you make a big fire, you've got to sit further away. So like I say, I learned so many things about making a fire. And I've got to throw this thing in here, not literally throw it in. It's my dog, by the way, getting in on the limelight. The old Boreal 21-inch bow saw. Fairly sure Survival Lily was the first person I saw use one of those as well. Absolutely brilliant invention. The thing is with one of these, I mean obviously you've seen them before, you know how good they are. The thing is with them, I cannot see them ever being improved. I don't think you can improve on that design. You can make it bigger maybe, but you don't really need it bigger. It won't fit in your backpack. So yeah, like I say, fire creation, fire control, splitting wood, making a base at the bottom of the fire, stuff like that. That's what I've learned. Something else we've learned off of YouTube is if you own a dog, they will always want to get in on the limelight. If you talk to a camera, they think you're talking to them, but it's not. Buddy, can we get you all in? There you go. There's Buddy. He's 11 years old this week. So that is the second thing I'm going to mention. Item number 3. As you can see, we've changed location, probably just as well because it started raining. But the reason for doing this next one here is the things I want to talk about are already in my van. They're in my what I call my sort of snow emergency kit, or at least some. If I thought it was going to snow, I would need to bring a few more things, but I've got a few bare essentials like brandy and coke and a gas can and a stove and whatever. Yeah. But the thing I really want to talk about is this and this. Should we do the song? I'm bulletproof, I am titanium. I absolutely love titanium. There are non-believers who haven't bought themselves one of these things yet. When these things first came out, in fact when Sporks first came out, I thought I've got to get one of them. Brilliant bit of camping invention, bit of camping kit rather. And I bought a plastic one. I must have got through 2 or 3 of them. Don't buy a plastic one. They are a lot cheaper obviously than titanium, with good reason. Unless you're very careful, you will break it. I mean, I got a bit over enthusiastic with a bit of chicken and you're trying to cut it up. Next thing you know, snapped in 2. Completely useless. But when these things first came out, I mean this is something else that's got a hell of a lot more popular in the last decade. They first came out, they were 20 quid a throw, and I thought, God, that is a lot of money, isn't it? Just for a spoon and a fork. Maybe I can live without it. Maybe I'm better off with 10 plastic ones. But they have come down in price. I think they came down to about 12 quid when I got one, put it on my Christmas list. But now you can get them for about as little as 6 on a good day. Get the cheapest one going, because I mean they say it's a spoon, a fork and a knife. I mean there's your little knife bit. Yeah, you could cut with that just about. It's a spoon and a fork. It's not a knife. The chances are you're going to have a knife of some kind anyway. But yeah, fantastic invention. And next up, the titanium cup. This is a Tom Shoe titanium cup. I'm not sure, I should really have checked. I think this is a 350ml, which is a pretty good size. 350ml is basically your tea coffee mug at home will fit in that. This looks a lot smaller because it's thinner. One thing you should watch out for is the kind of step on the handle here. That step, you rest your finger under there, makes life so much easier. Without that, you'd be trying to grab that, and then obviously it's got water in, it's inclined to tip over. This is just a minor detail, but worth looking out for. The popular wisdom on YouTube seems to go for Tokes. Tokes titanium seems to be the number one and also the most expensive, but that could have something to do with these things breaking. Obviously, if the handle breaks, it's as good as useless. But yeah, like I say, this is a 350ml. Were I to buy one now, I would most definitely go for a bigger one. I'll probably go for a 5, maybe 600ml for a variety of reasons. And get a gas can in one of them. And also trying to balance one of these on a pocket rocket stove. You can do it, but a little bit tricky. Obviously with a bigger one you've got more options open to you. You don't have to fill it up all the way. but you can use it as a cooking part. This, you couldn't really cook a whole hell of a lot in that, so yeah, you got double usage. So yeah, I would go for a bigger one, work it around the size of a gas can, handy for fitting that in. So there you go. Number 3, titanium. How's that? Yeah? Am I in shot? Excellent. I've changed location again. Well spotted. Coming at you live from the gear room. Just need to move that up a little bit here. Now there's something else you didn't know, which you now do from watching YouTube. Having the gear room is basically a fundamental human right, isn't it? If you haven't got one, then guys, build yourself a shed. Word of warning, when you do, when you build a shed, make some space in it. You've got all your shelving laid out there, space in the middle for you to do stuff. Just be careful that your wife or girlfriend doesn't fill it with junk for you. She'll see a bit of space and say, yes, I've got some junk I can stick in that. But that's enough about that. Dog has come to say hello. You're not required in this scene, thank you, buddy. Now, the fourth thing I would like to mention is solo wild camping. Now this is something that I've been inspired to do by watching people on YouTube. I never really did before. Now I say never really did. I had done, but only through necessity when I was on a bikepacking trip. I never deliberately went out for what is now known as a solo overnighter until I watched people on YouTube. Probably only went camping in the woods a couple of times a year with friends. So like I say, watching people do solo trips on YouTube, I thought, well, I don't want to wait for the twice a year. What I try to do is go out at least once every calendar month. However, in the last 2 months, I mean, as any Englishman watching this will contest to, some of you have been out, not many. It has just rained constantly. Well, not constantly, but pretty much on and off for about 2 months now. It's yeah, it's been a pretty bad time of year. But yeah, like I say, solo wild camping, it's something I've been inspired to do, and I'd like to mention a guy by the name of Pete Mind Wiseman. Now, he doesn't post so much lately. I know he's had a few health problems in recent years, but he was one of the first people I watched on YouTube. In fact, I do believe he was a friend of the Funky Prepper. In fact, they were actually both on a Channel 4 documentary called Doomsday Preppers, the British version. So I think that's how I originally started watching him on YouTube. There's something that Pete Mind Wiseman taught me. He said, when you're doing your overnighter out in the woods, he says, as soon as you get there, as much as possible, all the stuff you're planning on using, all your tools, your cook kit, not necessarily every single little bit of your cook kit, but your cook kit, your tools, anything you're planning on using, get it out in the open where you can see it, for 2 reasons. One, to check that it's there. You will soon know if you've forgotten something, and you can either live without it, or if you're on a group camp, maybe phone someone and rectify the situation. Send them a text, say bring some coffee. Don't ever forget the coffee. I've never done that. But yeah, he taught me that, like I say, get stuff out in the open. So what I tend to do, buddy's getting on the scene, I've got this thing with me. I'll take my bike and I get a big, it's like a waterproof bag. I will have this laid out in the woods. It's nice and blue, so obviously it sticks out from everything else in the woods. And any tools, stuff I'm planning on using, things like your torch. Make sure you've got your torch as soon as you arrive, just in case. Get stuff out where you can see it. So yeah, big up Pete Mind Wiseman for teaching me that little trick. And solo overnighters, it's something I've been inspired to do. So there's a dog has to get in on the scene. And he's got something in his mouth that he doesn't want to give me, even I'm not even trying to get it. So yeah, there you go. That is the fourth thing I would like to mention. And now, the number one. Now, like I said at the start, they are in no particular order except for the number one. I'm going to get that bit of fluff. Except for the number one, which is, this has been the single biggest revelation to me. I literally had no idea that these things existed until about 5 years ago. Exhibit A and B, the tarp. I got one here, the DD 3x2.9 ultralight, and this one
that apparently was a bargain when I bought it. It was £37 reduced from 90. Trouble is they've never gone back up to 90 in 3 years. But yeah, the tarp, I had no idea that those things existed. I'd obviously seen, I mean, I'd heard of a tarpaulin. Yeah, I'm not completely stupid. That's like a plastic sheet that you would use to cover a skip or an open dumpster, as I would say in America. But and I'd seen people use, like, extend a tent in a campsite by using a sheet with some poles on, but I had no idea they made tarps specifically with these tie-out points that you can make a shelter out of. Now, it's still a bit of a controversial issue. There are many tarp deniers amongst you. The tent versus tarp debate will live on until the end of time. But my personal way of looking at it is tents are practical. If you're going on a 3-4 day trip or longer, take a tent with you, because unless you know for certain you're going to be in a woodland every single night, you may well be out in the open. Tents are here out in the open, tarps are a bit of fun. They're one of those things, they're a bit of a boy's toy, really. They are similar in many ways to the Polish lavoo. Now, a lot of people own Polish lavoos. They're the most impractical, overweight tent known to man for their size. They are a boy's toy. And if you didn't know this, well, they say you'll get an honest opinion of a child. When I first got my Polish lavoo, about 2 years ago, first things first, you set it up in the garden. And my daughter, who was 6 years old at the time, took one look at it and she said, can you guess what she said? I'll pause for a second there. Guess what my 6-year-old daughter said when she saw my Polish lavoo? She said, "Oh, is that my new play tent?" I said, "No, it's not. It's Daddy's play tent." So the tarp is very similar. Like I say, they're a bit of fun. Obviously, there's 101 ways of setting it up. I find I spend forever setting it up. I set it up and then I mess about with a bit here and a bit there, and I've spent an hour on and off messing about with a tarp. Obviously, with a tent, it's you know exactly how long it's going to take. But a tarp is, another way of looking at it, is a bit like Lego. It's a different toy every time you use it, and that's where the fun factor comes into it. Like I say, you can do something different every single time, whereas your tent is your tent. So, and my number one is the tarp. And now I have the minor formality of tagging 1 or 2 people. Now, I should point out at this point, Bushcraft Dads is essentially 2 people. That's me, my name is Gary, and Ben. Now, Ben does all the editing and I do some of the filming. Ben does some of the filming as well. Sometimes we do filming together. So any comments, any replies to any comments will be made by me, and it will come up as Gary Hart's Wild Camper. Okay, so first of all, let's think. Now I've got 6 people I'm going to tag. Is it 6? No, make that 7 because I've added 1. 7 people I want to tag. You can tag as many or as few as you like. 3 is common, so let's go for tagging 3 people. And I would like this, hopefully, I would like this tag film to run for the whole of 2020, maybe not the whole of 2020, but for most of 2020, and then be done with it. Just 1 year and 1 year only. So you have got 1 year to make your film, with leaving enough time for somebody else to make their film as well, who you tag. So, the first person I'm going to tag, seems only fair, really, is Ben. Ben from the Bushcraft Dads, my YouTube partner in crime, or editor-in-chief, as I like to call him. The man who makes me look good on screen. So, Ben, consider yourself tagged. Second, Lee from Step Away from the Screens. Seems only fair to tag Lee. He's one of our biggest fans. He's actually one of the few people that also often makes films involving his children, gets them out in the open air. So Lee, name the top 5 things you've learnt off of YouTube. Consider yourself tagged. Next up, Adam. Adam has got a channel called Midlife Crisis Guy. Now, isn't that just the best name for a channel ever? You know, see that? I mean, I think so many people must have seen his channel name and thought, damn, that's what I should have called myself, because let's face it, a lot of us watching this are midlife crisis guy. So yeah, Adam, he's a bit of an all-rounder, does solo stuff, he does bike packing trips and all sorts. So yeah, Adam, midlife crisis guy, you've been tagged. And next up, Simon, a bloke in the woods. Or Simon, a chef in the woods. Simon is he's a bit of an all-rounder. Again, fantastic channel name. Call yourself a bloke in the woods and no one can criticise. Call yourself bushcraft, people can say, well, you're not really bushcraft, but call yourself a bloke in the woods, then like I say, does exactly what it says on the tin. Simon is also a chef in the woods, and Simon has recently made a film teaching you how to do a poo in the woods. So if you need to know that, I knew that anyway. Many years of practice. But yeah, so Simon, a bloke in the woods, you've been tagged. And next up, we are going to go to the other side of the Atlantic. Guy by the name of Dave Pearson. His channel name is Really Big Monkey One. Dave, coming at you live from the gear room. Now Dave, basically, you know as well as I do, you get tagged for absolutely everything. If there's a tag film going around, people put you on it straight away. The reason being, you always do them. You are just he's one of the nicest guys on YouTube because he replies to every single comment. He made a promise when he started his channel he would reply to every comment, and he still does. So like I say, Dave, you get tagged for everything, so you may as well jump the queue. So Dave from Really Big Monkey One, consider yourself tagged. And next up, Jimmy. Jimmy from Lundy's Wild Camp and Bushcraft. Now Jimmy is part of a big sort of group of guys up in the northeast of England who've got they got a really good sort of community going on up there where they all get together every couple of weeks and do their group wild camps. For some reason, other parts of England and Great Britain don't seem to do that. They've really got themselves together up there. It's a shame that we don't have something more like that down here. So yeah, Jimmy from Lundy's Wild Camp and Bushcraft. I'm in good hands with Jimmy because, like I say, he's part of a big organisation. He will tag half the northeast just for me. So Jimmy, consider yourself tagged. And now, last up, number 7. I'm gonna aim high. I'm gonna go for a bit of an A-lister here, and I'm gonna tag Survival Lily. A guy I used to work with used to say, a faint heart never won a fair lady, so what the hell, I might as well give it a try. I will contact Lily as best I can and ask her nicely. Like I mentioned earlier, Lily, I've been a big fan of yours from day one pretty much. I've learnt so much stuff from you, and I know you've taken a lot of criticism of people over the years. Mainly guys, let's face it, are basically jealous of some girl half their age is teaching them stuff they didn't know. And I don't know whether anybody has ever taken the time to read through the comments that Lily gets after making the YouTube film. Mostly positive. I mean, it is 90-95% positive, but there's always a few digs, you know, criticisms, some quite cruel. So what I'm going to do before I end this, I am going to quote for Lily and for anybody who's ever taken any criticism which they believe to be unfair. I would like to remind you of what I will hope will become a YouTube old saying. Some people post comments and they can be mean, but we never see their face appear on a screen. So they hide behind keyboards, they poke and they snipe. They're clearly lacking in confidence and only know how to type. Thank you very much for watching.